A few years ago, I set out on a challenge to read 100 pages a day for a week, all in the hopes of building a reading routine. 3 years later, and no reading routine in place still, I have decided to read 150 pages a day for a week and see if that does the trick. And I am starting out with Good Girl Bad Blood, which is the direct continuation of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Have to be honest, I've already started this. I am 142 pages in, about to start chapter 15, which means that I have to read to page 292 or all the way to page 300, depending on exactly where the chapter break is. And surprisingly, this book starts still in the throes of the Andy Bell Sal Singh case, which is the case that we observe in book 1, where Pip, our local high schooler, is actually carrying out a school project, and as part of her project, she decides to somewhat investigate and pull together a document regarding the Andy Bell case, who everybody speculates was offed by her boyfriend, except that Pip doesn't believe that to be the case, and she will make sure to garner all of the information to convince people of that same fact. In this book, we start out with the trial for the Andy Bell case, which was surprising because I thought we were going to start book 2 out with a new mystery, but not. We've already kicked into the new mystery. Jamie Reynolds has gone missing, and Pip, against all her wants and wishes, is going to investigate said disappearance to see exactly what has happened to Jamie Reynolds, see if he's alive, see if he's dead. And she has a podcast now, a super popular podcast, which everybody is kind of hoping will garner enough attention towards this case so that they can actually find Jamie before it is seemingly too late. So let's sit down and read. Let's read our first 150 pages of the video. I think it's gonna be quite interesting because PSA, when I say I don't have a reading routine, I mean it. I don't even read every day. Nearly 10 p.m. but we did it, friends. I did read the first 150 pages of the video, which is very exciting. I in fact read 152 pages, if anyone cares about exactitudes. So I've got 100 pages left, which is really cool because it means that tomorrow we get to finish the first book of the video and then choose the next book, which I didn't think I'd be able to say at day 2 of the challenge. But I was genuinely thinking that this book was not going to be as good as A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. It was not going to live up to the hype or the expectation as a sequel, particularly because YA thriller series kind of get formulaic, and when an author kind of hits their stride and figures out what works for the story, I find the plots to be somewhat repetitive. I do have to say though, although book 1 was very immersive in terms of how interested I was in solving the mystery alongside Pip, this book is much more emotional for some reason. I think seeing firsthand Jamie's family's reactions as they get news on the case, as they see things on the news that may or may not be related to Jamie's disappearance, it has fully broken my heart several times to see the family break down into sobs or be stressed or not know what to do next, not know how to carry themselves. I think that emotional aspect of the book has gotten me time and time again, which I cannot say for book 1, and so the emotional aspect of this I think is hitting really well. I also think that the story is picking up at the point where I'm at, and it's getting very exciting. There is loads of information being revealed about Jamie and about exactly what was happening leading up to his disappearance. A lot of things that his family is not aware of, like people who he was talking to, where he was hanging out with people, asking for money, trying to steal things, being on his phone a lot, getting kind of aggressive and somewhat defensive. All of those things are very out of character, it seems like, for Jamie, and so it definitely creates some sort of pattern before he disappears, and we are continuously finding that throughout the story. And then also in the way that this kind of interweaves with book 1, with things that were left unresolved, particularly in the trial of Andy Bell and Sal Singh. It has been really interesting to see how it all plays out in this one, and then to add to an already tense storyline, and it's getting even more tense, to add to it the podcast element that the book has and all of the mixed media, the images, the Reddit posts, the news articles. It makes for such an immersive experience where you really do feel like you're there with the characters experiencing everything in real time and how the stakes are getting higher and higher, and again, situations get even more tense. There are bits and pieces that I do think require a little bit of a suspend of disbelief, but not to the point where it's so outrageous where I'm like, okay, now Holly Jackson, now wait a second. But there are definitely scenes that I look at and I go, teenagers, really? But I think I have read worse in terms of outlandish things that teenagers do in books. And so I'm really enjoying this. I think we are gearing up towards a last really explosive 100 pages. So I'm really hoping to see some good stuff towards the end of the book and to see what Holly Jackson will do to wrap it all up and exactly who the culprit is. Like, where exactly is Jamie Reynolds? I think that is something I am dying to know at this point, just given what happened in these last 150 pages. And so I cannot wait to find out tomorrow when we sit down to finish the book. First 100 pages of the day have been read, friends, and I literally look as tired as I feel. I woke up at 6 a.m. today and I did all of my spring cleaning today, and I didn't get done up until about like 4 hours ago, and then it was cooking lunch and then sitting down to read, and I am a little bit exhausted because I didn't think the cleaning would be so extensive. So I feel like my hair right now is doing crazy things. I look a little bit tired, but all of that said, I finished Good Girl Bad Blood by Holly Jackson. I'm a little bit conflicted about the ending, I'm not gonna lie. I thought that the book was going to wrap up and reveal things in a way that made a little bit more sense just because of how the story was going. And although the reveal that happened towards the end, the plot twist, what exactly was going on, while it all did make sense, it just felt so out of nowhere and kind of disconnected from the plot line we had gotten thus far that it kind of took me a little bit out of the story because it didn't seem like the best handout given the succession of events. So it definitely made for an interesting closure to the whole story because I think it was very much not what I was expecting. I don't even think I could have remotely gotten to the place of expecting this because it definitely doesn't seem connected to the plot at all. And so I am a little bit conflicted because although the end did some good things that I really loved in terms of showcasing how Pip is not doing so great as a consequence of her investigations and her getting involved into these disappearances or into these murder mysteries, it can be very taxing for just about anybody. But when you talk about well, I don't know if she's 16, but she's definitely still in high school. And so for a high schooler getting involved in something so serious and so low-key traumatizing depending on what's happening, you know, such a big situation, just imagine if it's taxing for an adult. Now imagine how taxing it'd be for somebody whose frontal cortex is not even like fully developed. I can just imagine the scars that leaves behind. And I think what this book did really well, that for example, something like Truly Devious, which is somewhat of the YA mystery thriller equivalent to this series, I think what this does really well is really, again, showcasing the impact that all of this has on Pip mentally. Things like anxiety and PTSD and loads of even anger towards the injustices that are happening and how that affects her every day, how that affects her interactions with her family, how it affects her interactions with her friends, with her boyfriend, with the people in her school, with the people that are somewhat involved in the case. And so while I enjoyed all of that and all of the tension that really built up towards the end, and particularly Ravi and Pip's interactions and all of those emotional bits that I think added to my already emotional state while reading this, I think all of that was really good. But I feel like a lot of the mystery bits kind of felt like, aha, I've got the answer. Didn't think it was me, right? And so it just felt very Scooby-Doo villain, Scooby-Doo reveal, Scooby-Doo everything. I didn't particularly love that aspect of the book, but everything else kind of really worked for me. I'm leaning between like a 3.5 and a 4-star. Definitely don't think this is as good as book 1. Like, it was good, it was solid. Now I need to pick another book to read another 50 pages. So let's go to the office. Let's go pick something out because I'm not sure what the next thing is going to be. Let's start walking. Let's pick something else out. I don't know what I'm in the mood for. I don't know if I'm in the mood for a fantasy, if I'm in the mood for a romance, if I'm in the mood for a manhwa. I'm not really sure. So let's see what we've got left in the TBR card and let's make some choices. Lighting is not going to be the best, but let's bear with it for a second. This is what we have got left of my April TBR. So we have got, I mean, still quite a few books left. I just don't know what I'm in the mood for. I didn't realize how like fantasy charged my TBR is, and I kind of want a romance for a buffer. I'm thinking Villains Are Destined to Die Volume 5 will be a good option, if only because I've only got 47 pages left to read today. And so not picking something so dense, I feel like is going to be a good choice so that I can get through this and get my dose of romance that I'd like. And now we go back out to the living room and we keep on reading. Unruly hair for the absolute win today, but started Villains Are Destined to Die Volume 5 and I read 180 pages. So that brings us to a total of 283 pages for today. I was attempting to get to like a chapter break, but it turns out I read, I think, part 1, 2, and like half of part 3 during my little session. So I've only got this much left. So we'll finish it out tomorrow. I've talked about Villains Are Destined to Die a lot here on my channel. It seems to be like one of my reading obsessions, and I'm not mad at it at all. So in this one, we follow a main character that enters a very popular romance game, and the game's purpose is to win affection points to either return home as the lost Duke's daughter or to remain at the Duke's residence as the stand-in daughter, because she looks exactly the same. For the lost Duke's daughter that wants to return home, that's easy mode. Her name is Yvonne. And then to stay in the residence, that is hard mode, and that is Penelope Eckhart, which is considered the villainess of the game. She's not really a villain, but she is definitely the type of person that if you treat her a very specific way, she will return the favor. And she can be like slightly villainous if she wants to be, but I don't know that I'd call her villainous more than I'd call her calculative and maybe just a tad manipulative when she needs to be, but not necessarily a villain. And so our main character falls asleep. She enters the game. Turns out she's playing in hard mode. And in hard mode, it's super hard to earn affection points. In fact, it's super easy to lose them. And when you lose enough of them, or you go into the minuses, the love interest that has lost that many affection points then kills you, essentially. She was kind of obsessed with the game before she entered it, and so as she enters the game and she plays in hard mode, she already has some sort of pre-established knowledge of how things are supposed to go down in the game, how to interact with certain characters, who to stay away from, what to say, what not to say. And it's always super fun to see how she goes about it all, because there are definitely moves that she is aware of because of the game that she's played before, and then there are other things that she's completely freeballing because she feels like it's the right move to make. There are surprise quests that she's unlocking that were definitely not a part of the game that she played before. And so it's all very fun. It's all very unexpected. There are many different love interests, but I'm personally rooting for Callisto so bad. I want Penelope and Callisto together so bad. And I think especially in this one, when we experience the trial and then we experience the aftermath of it with Penelope and Callisto meeting up, and particularly their banter and their sarcasm, I feel like they just understand each other so well at a level that maybe Penelope isn't understood by other characters. And so even though he's the most unreliable love interest and slightly murderous and slightly a little bit out of it, I love them. Your Honor, this is the pair up I want, and I hope that it's end game. So finish this tomorrow. Talk to you guys then. I'm definitely going to bed though because I'm getting really, really tired. have to say, we are currently in optimal reading conditions. It's raining and I love it. Honestly, the fact that we're getting back into rain season here in Panama and it's just been so cozy. Got the AC on right now and it's like super cold in here. I'm ready to kick back. Like Vin is currently sitting there, but I will dethrone my cat because I want to sit on the chair, get comfy and read. And we'll be switching chairs because she also loves this one. So it'll be okay. Don't worry. It will be okay for Miss Vinster. However, I did finish Villains Are Destined to Die Volume 5 and I gave it 5 stars. Unsurprising. again, I say that with every single manga or manhwa, it didn't have to do something real crazy, real unfair for me to give it any less than a 5-star. And so I really enjoyed this one. I think seeing the aftermath to everything that happened in volume 4 that kind of left off in a really tense note, and seeing all of the development of events, seeing what that basically resulted in for all of Penelope's love interests was really cool to see. It is one of the, I think, first volumes that we're seeing the main character really make some big, bold moves that may really hinder her experience and get her some points deducted for the affection points, but she's ready to make bold choices and she's ready to kind of manipulate her way through the game and to make choices that, although maybe really out there, can really secure her some really good strong affection points despite it being kind of dangerous to do so. And so I love that in this one she is unafraid of doing all of that despite the danger that it poses. I obviously loved seeing all of her interactions with Callisto. Definitely did not think I'd see the day where Callisto would become my favorite love interest for her, but he is. I absolutely love the way that they interact with each other and the way that Callisto is so cheeky and sarcastic with her, because he obviously has a big sense of self-importance because he is the crown prince. And so he is like, oh, you did that? Like, what would the people say? Oh, you did that with the crown prince? How dare you? But you can tell it's all very flirty, and he does so because his ego, yes, is big, but because he kind of knows that Penelope will have a quick-witted answer to reply with. And I love it because she always replies and interacts with him in ways that he is not expecting. And I think it's a breath of fresh air for him, somebody who kind of knows what to expect at every turn, not only in the interactions with the girly pops, but also with the rest of the royal court, because he is going to at some point be their king. And so I really love seeing them together. Eccles is getting on my nerves. If you've read Villains Are Destined to Die, or if you started it, please start it if you haven't. Eccles really gets on my damned nerves. Anytime he's on the page, I'm like, oh my god. And I think the reason why it freaks me out is because I can't tell if he's just faking it all or if he's being for real. And I am just a little bit scared of what Eccles is going to do, because even though Penelope is supposed to be the villain, I really want her to win. I don't want Yvonne back. Anytime Eccles is on page, he's like so unpredictable that I never really know where things are going to swing, because he is one of the most dangerous love interests for Penelope. And so I really dislike him and don't want him on my pages. And yet I've been getting a lot of him recently and I don't really love it, but it is part of the dynamic of the story. And then Winter, I know Winter and Callisto are probably the top 2 love interests. I don't really care for Winter that much. And so I don't mind him when he's on my page, but I find that the interactions with him sometimes are just kind of cliched fairy tale vibes. I don't personally love that. And so I like the unpredictability and yet the flirtiness and the everything between Callisto and Penelope. I think they would make a prime couple, like 2 menaces together. You don't have to tell me twice. It's like non-negotiable, baby. And so 5 stars to this. It was a good time, and we've finished the second book of the video. I currently have Wild Love by Elsie Silver sitting at my PO box. I could order that. I could read it. It's not on my TBR this month, but I am craving a romance. I feel it in my bones. And so maybe diverting a little bit from the TBR to read Wild Love is not so bad, because it is one of those books that I am anticipating. It's one of my most anticipated releases of the year. And so maybe I just need to get that. I also have it on KU, so I could also read it digitally, but holding the physical book I think would be amazing. I've just been wanting to like flip pages, you know? Sometimes I'm in an ebook reading mood and I'm just wanting to scroll. But right now I'm in like that let's turn the page mood. And so I feel like I'm going to order that so that I can get here in like the next 30 minutes or so. And then I'm also thinking of reading volume 6 of Villains Are Destined to Die, because I do own it. And why wouldn't I read it? Because I'm craving it. And so maybe I'll do it. But so far today, actually, we need to tally this up. How many pages is this? 265, 66, 67, 68, 269 pages, 270 pages. So I read 180 pages yesterday. So what does that give us? Like 90 pages, roughly? We have to read 60 more pages today to comply with our 150, because I'm currently sprinting. As you can see over on this side, currently sprinting with my patrons. I am thinking that I'm gonna read a whole lot more than just 60 pages for today, because sprints are my only plan for the day, and we still have about 7 hours left of sprints, because I kind of said that I was gonna sprint for 8 to 9 hours today. And so we're gonna be here for a while. I'm so excited about this, I could cry. Oh my god, the book is so beautiful. I have it here with me. We need to start it. I totally forgot that this was about Willa's brother, Ford Grant. I could just about sob. But you know what? We have got our Thai latte right here, which is going to be a great time. I actually need to put my iPad elsewhere because it's like fully on the way. But we've got the Thai latte, and to top things off and make them better, we have got some good old, I think I just dropped a chip, salt and vinegar chips. Delicious. Mel has got to get done include doing the dishes, putting away dishes, and then taking out the trash. I love that the fourth finger just kind of escapes there. But Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Let me give you an update. So I'm 102 pages in. So that means I've read 192 pages so far today, and I'm not done reading because I do think I'm gonna get a little bit more reading done before I go to bed. And I am standing here gobsmacked and surprised at the fact that I'm gonna come in and say, so far I'm not loving Wild Love. And it's too early to say really, because it's just the first 100 pages, but I am not feeling the same type of excitement or even chemistry or freaking out that I have felt in past Elsie Silver books. I was fully expecting such a good start to this one, because even with the Chestnut Spring series, even if I didn't know the characters that were involved in the book, that never really put a hinder into me enjoying the books, at least right from the get-go. And I don't know if it's particularly the fact that the Eaton brothers are super charismatic and all of them are just fucking phenomenal except for Bo. And then to add to that, all of the other protagonists, I think it was a really good mixture of characters to have in that series. It was always an exciting time. In Wild Love, we follow Willa's brother actually, so Ford Grant. Willa is the main character of book 2 in the Chestnut Springs series. So we kick off with her brother, and we kind of already know from Chestnut Springs that he's a little bit of an asshole. He's super sarcastic. He's a super successful businessman, entrepreneur, and he has kind of dedicated his entire adulthood to his career, because despite them growing up with money, their dad always enforced the rule of, I am not going to sustain you on the day-to-day, so you better know how to handle your finances, and you better be very, very, very much a goal-getter so that you can sustain whatever it is that you set out to do with your life. And so he's been a hard worker for basically his entire life. And come to find out at the start of the book, which kind of sets up this narrative a little bit like Game Plan, the Rock movie with Madison, oh, what's her name? Madison Pettis? Can't remember her name, but the one where he's an American football player and she's the little girl that comes and she's like, oh my god, you're my dad. It's kind of like that. He gets a knock on the door by a 12-year-old named Cora claiming that he is her father. And he's like, there's no way I'm your dad. And she's like, well, actually, weren't you a sperm donor like years ago? Because surprise, it kind of was a hit. Despite him being a donor, because of recent circumstances in Cora's life, she has sought him out to see if he can kind of take care of her for the time being, because she doesn't have anybody else. And he ends up agreeing, so he ends up kicking up a sort of single dad dynamic very unexpectedly. And at the same time as he finds this out, we see Rosie, which is the love interest second protagonist. We see her really struggle with her day-to-day life, not only in her relationship to her roommate turned partner, who is very much dismissive and who seems to have a higher sense of self-importance that does somewhat put a hinder into their relationship, but also having a lot of issues in the workplace. So she decides to up and end her life as she knows it and go back to Rose Hill, which is the town where she grew up. Despite them knowing each other for a really, really long time, he's had a crush on her for the absolute longest time. It seems like this has been the one girl for him for the past decade, despite him never making a move on her because it's obviously his best friend's sister. It's supposed to be very charged with chemistry right off the bat because she does find him attractive in the same ways that he does her, and yet I don't feel any chemistry. And to top things off, Cora as the child that has spawned out of nowhere, I don't particularly love her either. I don't find that her attitude is the best, and while I understand that Girly Pop has gone through a lot in recent years, I feel like she doesn't demonstrate her gratefulness for what Ford is doing, which he really doesn't have to do. As a sperm donor, I don't think it's fully his responsibility to take charge of a child that he has never met and whom he fully like signed away the rights to when he like, you know, donated his sperm and whatnot. And so I definitely think that she just has a little bit of a sour attitude, and she's like this emo child who's like super sarcastic and witty all the time, but I just think a lot of the time it comes across as a little bit ungrateful and just not really good. And so I'm not even loving the fact that there's a child in the book. I honestly genuinely don't, and I don't even know why it's there to begin with as part of the dynamic of the story, because it's really not adding anything to it. And so it is a tad bit bleh right now. We'll see how things progress, because I am going to obviously keep giving it a shot to see if it gets better. If it doesn't, I may just find myself with my third DNF of the year. I wouldn't want an Elsie Silver to be a DNF, but so far it's not hitting any of the spots. Not for the chemistry, not for the potential romance, not for how the story is going, because I feel like nothing really has happened so far. So then the child thrown into the mix, which adds nothing to the story. We'll see how it goes. Maybe my opinion will change, but so far it's just very meh. So we'll see. It's a new day. We are back at the office and we're reading Wild Love. Surprisingly, haven't DNF'd this yet. Thank you for the truck for the confirmation. Haven't DNF'd this yet. I think I'm gonna push through to the end because I have got about 90 pages left. I literally woke up this morning, I read a little bit in bed, then I switched to reading in the living room. I started Sprint with my patrons, which I'm currently doing, and then I said I was gonna start editing tomorrow's video, and yet I'm still reading, and I have read a whopping 254 pages today already. I'm literally at page 354, about to start chapter 37, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this book is 447 pages. So I literally have 90 pages left, and it's a vibe. So we're gonna finish it before I do anything else with my day and see how it goes. I think it's a fun book. I don't think it's Elsie Silver's best book that I have read, and while I am liking how the kinks are being worked out in the book in terms of Rosie and Ford getting together and Cora really becoming an integral part of their dynamic and their lives, and Cora really meeting both of their families, both on Rosie's end but also on Ford's end, and really again integrating herself into this side of her life and her family. I have liked how things have developed. I think Cora has become a sweet character, and I love seeing her. I wish we would low-key get a bit more of her, because we do get loads of mentions of, oh, Ford and Cora's relationship has gotten better, or oh, this quality time that Cora and Rosie spent together, and we don't get to see it every time, and it's not that we need to, but I just want to see a little bit more of Cora and see more of her interaction, especially because she is a new part of this dynamic. This is something that Ford was very unaware would take place. Like, he was not expecting to be a dad either at all or anytime soon, and so for this to kind of spring up on him so quickly, there's a huge adjustment period. And there was a point, I think it was on page like maybe 110, 120, around that range, where he mentioned that he became extremely overprotective of Cora kind of like immediately, but we didn't see the lead up to that and exactly what shifted or what happened to cause that shift in his life. Because although, do I think that paternal and maternal instincts can kick up quite quickly to the point that you would become protective of somebody that way? Yes, but I would think that in his specific case, it'd be something that triggers that. And so I kind of do wish that we were seeing things that are mentioned in the book instead of being told those things, and kind of go from there. And outside of that, I'm not really vibing with the, I guess, sexual chemistry between Rosie and Ford. I think surprisingly, every Elsie Silver book has really worked for me in terms of like the spice and the physical intimacy. This one just feels a little bit too forced sometimes, where it feels like the characters are overcompensating, and I know they've had this game of, oh, I hate you, but really I like you, and they've been having that game at play for a really long time, but it's, I think, this type of spice that I don't particularly love, where it's like, turn around, I'm gonna fuck you against my desk, bitch, and I'm just like, whoa. And so I'm not particularly loving that aspect, but I am quite loving their more tender, intimate, conversationalist moments when maybe Ford is having doubts about him being a parent now, or maybe Rosie is kind of feeling insecure about her career trajectory and moving back to Rose Hill. And I think it's those moments when they're being very vulnerable with each other and they are vocalizing the way that they feel and the things that they're experiencing now, instead of just masking that through their banter and their wittiness and the the comedic timing that they have kind of got with each other. I appreciate that a lot more than the smut in this book. I definitely wish we would have also gotten more of those moments instead of so much of that back and forth of like, oh, fuck you, no, fuck you, and fuck you. Because we've gotten a bunch of that in this book of them just being very antagonizing with each other. They're doing so because they like each other, and particularly Ford says it. He's like, it's easier for me to pretend that I hate her than to admit that I love her or that I really like her. And so I get it. It's just a little bit infuriating. And so I'm enjoying it. But again, it's not like the best Elsie Silver I've read. What I will give Elsie Silver props for is the fact that even though there are certain interactions that could lead to miscommunication or could lead to the characters getting angry at each other for like really, really minute kind of like stupid details, I really do love that they don't get mad at each other. They are very good at the, but I actually like it. I like the feistiness. You know what? I love the banter. And so I love that it kind of beats the typical structure or dynamic that I see in romance books where interactions like that typically lead to misunderstandings. With them, she's like, oh, he's jealous? Let me sit back and watch. I actually quite love this. Or he said this, that's actually kind of hot. So I will say I do enjoy that about the book because I feel like the opposite would be kind of annoying for me. But there's that. I don't know. We'll see how this ends up. I am going to finish it just now because I need to edit. But honestly, at this point, why am I going to put down the book when I've got 90 pages left? Might as well just finish it. So I'm going to do that. We'll update you when I'm done and we'll see what we pick up next. Take a wild guess, wild love, as to who finished Wild Love today. If you said me, then that would be correct. How would you know? You're such a good guesser. Also, Vin is totally eating in the background, and so you'll definitely hear that. However, I finished Wild Love, and I'm surprised that I did, because that means that today, the official tally came up to, if I am not mistaken, 345 pages read. I did not think we were gonna read that many pages. 1, 2, didn't think I was going to finish Wild Love. There was definitely a point where I thought I was going to end up DNFing this because it's not my favorite Elsie Silver thus far, though I am quite interested to see how West's book, which is the second book in this series, will play out. West is Rosie's brother, who is also a single father, and he currently has a crush on like a really huge celebrity, and it seems like that will be his love interest in his book, which I am quite interested in seeing. And it definitely seems like the setup for the series is all single dads. They've kind of got this weird like bromance book club dynamic, but it's a bowling club, and so they all go bowling, but they're all single dads. And so the one requirement to get into the club is to be a father. It's like such a strange one, but if it works for the grand scheme of the series, then it works. I was kind of underwhelmed with how a lot of things played out from Ford and Rosie's dynamic and the way that things just kind of developed between them. I am sure that they were supposed to have loads of chemistry. Half the time I couldn't really feel it. I found that the smut, which kind of did take over towards the last third of the book, like there was quite a bit of it. I didn't particularly love it. Like the whole brat dominant dynamic is not something that I particularly like adore. And so Rosie being such a brat, I think on and off the bedroom, it definitely hindered my reading experience because when they antagonize each other, it kind of takes over the entire story. And I'm sure they know each other really well because they've known each other for forever. But because we don't see a lot of the gritty details because they've known each other for so long, it almost kind of feels like it's a surface level thing at times, their relationship. And so I didn't really adore this the same way that I have other Elsie Silver books. A little bit disappointing. I did end up really enjoying Cora, although I do wish she would have remained a consistent part in the story because there was definitely a point towards the end where it was much more about the romance and not so much about Cora and her entering Ford's life. Definitely things I wanted to see more of, things I wanted to see less of. I am very conflicted with this book, but I think think I'm gonna end up settling for a 3-star. I feel like that sounds fair. It's like very middle of the road, and that was kind of all it was. But let's hope that the second book will be good. I will catch up with you guys tomorrow. I need to wake up and do some heavy editing. So I'll be waking up at the crack ass of dawn, you best bet, to get this editing done so that then when I hop onto Citadel Sprints, I can actually get some reading done and read my 150 pages. I have no idea what we're gonna end up picking up tomorrow. It could be just about anything. There are certain things that I'm eyeing out, so we'll talk about it tomorrow morning because definitive choices have yet to be made. We have lost a nail in the making of this video, so I need to schedule out an appointment with my nail tech for this coming week because I always lose a nail. It's like there's always one or two that just want to escape my hand. This month is one, which is why I've been wearing a band-aid this entire time, but I forgot to put one on. So you're going to have to deal with the ugly thingy, but I am going to hide it so as to not see it myself because I know it doesn't bother y'all. It bothers me. That said, I started Dune by Frank Herbert. I had initially picked up this book in 2021. I read about 120 pages. I DNF'd it, didn't want to keep reading it. I found that the way that Herbert presents information at the beginning of the book, super infuriating. I thought that from the way that he makes the characters interact and that he presents the internal monologue, which is very telly and kind of dry. I was talking to a friend about it and she said that his writing is very clinical. I agree. And so I didn't particularly love that the first go around. And then there were loads of terms being used that obviously wasn't familiar with at my first reading experience. And I was increasingly frustrated at the fact that he takes a while to introduce what these actually mean despite mentioning them so many times before. And so structurally, the way that he goes about it is so strange that I grew very frustrated with it very quickly, and I decided to put the book down for my own sanity at the time. I feel like now, although my takes on Herbert's structure with the book are no different, I still do think it's very dry. I still think it's very clinical. I still think that he could go about it in a better way. I don't disagree with my opinions back then on that. I am enjoying the journey a lot more, and I feel like it's because I have got the visuals of the film to go along with it. So far I've read 68 pages. I think I'm about to finish a chapter, yeah, and then jump into the next one. So that brings us for 68 pages read today, which means that I still have roughly around, let's say 90 pages, let's round it up, around 90 pages left to read. I have plans with my family. I'm going to take the book with me so that I can get some more reading done, and hopefully we can complete those 90 pages before I go to bed, and hopefully even before I come back home, because that would be lovely. But basically in this one, we follow the Atreides family, and particularly the ducal heir Paul Atreides, as they move into the planet Arrakis in order to carry out the Emperor's decree to take over the spice mining in the planet. The spice called melange is really at the center point of the story. Said spice allows you to unlock certain areas of your brain that you wouldn't otherwise get to do. It allows for interspatial travel, which is something that you wouldn't be able to do without it either. And so the benefits that you'd get from it are really, really high, and it's very highly coveted. And so while the Harkonnens, which are the Atreides' mortal enemies, held the power over Arrakis for years on years, now it is the Atreides' turn to get there and exert their dominance and power over the planet. And it comes with a lot of political moves and a lot of political tension. The Atreides are widely loved and widely appreciated by several other royal families, and that in and of itself threatens the Emperor a whole lot. Not to mention that the Harkonnens are extremely against the Atreides coming to Arrakis and taking over because of course they want that job, of course they want that mining contract, and of course they want the spice for themselves to distribute however it is that they choose to do so. And so as the Atreides get to Arrakis with all of this pre-existing political tension, they are hoping to make some political ties with the Fremen, which are the native people of Arrakis. And despite them not really understanding the Fremen and their culture and the way that they structure themselves politically, they still do want their support because they know that if anybody were to rally against the Atreides, they would probably need the help of the local native people of Arrakis in order order to put up a stronger front against whoever could fight them. But tensions get even higher when betrayal arrives to the chat, and then Paul is faced with the notion of losing everything as he has known it, on top of very mystical otherworldly terms being used around him, like him potentially being the Kwisatz Haderach, which he slowly starts figuring out what that means. And so not only could he potentially be the Kwisatz Haderach, the Fremen also believe that he might potentially be the Lisan al-Gaib, which is a messiah prophet that has been prophesied to get to Arrakis at some point in time, and not only liberate the Fremen, but change Arrakis as it is known. I think it has been fascinating, like 3 years after DNFing the book, to realize just how much of a cultural impact Dune has had, even on a silent way. Because when you grab things like Star Wars, which is inspired on so many different pieces of history, from samurai history to Greek and Roman mythology, all the way to Nazi history, Dune is also one of its primary sources of inspiration, and you can see it from the way that the world itself politically is built, all the way to Anakin's character structure that very much resembles Paul's arc as a character. It's very fascinating to see the impact that Dune has overall, and so safe to say that I obviously want to read the source material and see what this is about, to see if maybe this go around I can finish it. And so that is my hope with starting this in this video. We'll see how I fare, we'll see how I do. I'll keep you guys updated and see how this journey goes on this second try, on this second round. I also love that you can see what Scylla's done to my bed. I need to get my bed fixed. Let's ignore that for now. If you have cats, you know. All that to say, I'll keep you updated as I read. I am hoping to get to 150 pages today. I think that would be really sick. And so I'll keep you updated on that end and see what happens. Let me tell you something. I am literally about to head out because one of my best friend's birthdays is today. Birthdays plural, birthday singular is today. And so I need to head out like immediately because I'm already a little bit late because I had to film another video, but I didn't read anything else yesterday. And guess what? I have barely read anything today. Listen, I knew this was going to happen because depending on the day, I know it's hard for me to get some reading done, especially if I'm not waking up like extremely early or if I'm not like planning my day around it. And so yesterday I finished sprints. I went out to hang out with my family. Didn't get home until like 10 p.m. I immediately crashed and then I woke up this morning. I did read a little bit of Dune. Let me tell you how much I read. So yesterday I got to page, I think I said like 70, I'm pretty sure, or like something among that realm. I got to page 108 today. So I read about 30 pages, which is really not a whole lot. And so I'm currently on page 108. Progress is progress, but would I have loved to come here and say, I'm on page 260 of Dune? Abso-fucking-lutely. However, I cannot say that. I am heading out to this birthday party. I don't know what time I'm gonna be back. I may just try and read a little some before I go to bed, but I think we can call yesterday and today a failure. We've been doing so good, but honestly, if you divide the amount of pages I read of Wild Love like 2 days ago, I think that kind of counts, right? Like I read 340 something pages divided by 2. You get the rest of what I should be reading plus the pages I may read when I come back. We'll compensate and we'll make up for it maybe. I feel like it makes sense in my head so as to not feel so bad. Out of the 30 extra pages that I read, I think it solidifies my opinion that the internal dialogue and monologue of the characters in Dune is atrocious. It is probably the thing I am disliking the most. I feel like outside of it, everything is really working for me. I'm loving the world building. I'm loving the science-y element of it. I am loving the tension between the Harkonnens and the Atreides and them finding out more of Arrakis as they get there. Like all of that is really, really fascinating. But when it comes to how Frank Herbert navigates all of the characters' inner thoughts, I really am not enjoying it. It's very cringy, first of all. Second of all, it overstates the most obvious things. There was literally a moment where Jessica and Paul were talking, or whoever he was asking about, and she in her head goes, what an astute observation. No, it is the most obvious observation. And so it is really maddening to read the internal dialogue of things that I think take a lot of intrigue away from the story, because I feel a lot of these things should be implied. They should not be outwardly told to the reader because it kills all tension. We already know from the get-go, as soon as the book starts, that Dr. Yue is not necessarily bad, but he's also not good, and he's working with the Harkonnens. I don't feel like we should know that right away. I feel like maybe there should be like some suspicious moves, maybe some suspicious comments, but not actual information that solidifies the fact that he is betraying the Atreides family. And not only that, but also hearing all of his internal thoughts about, oh, my Wana would say this, my Wana was like so similar to Jessica because she was also a Bene Gesserit, or oh my god, she can't know that I am actually going to betray them, so I must speak with some truth. I feel like that element of the book is very overridden and I'm not enjoying it as much. Outside of that, things are really working for me. I stand by that fact because I've got so many annotations from back in 2021 going, this is atrocious, and I agree. I don't disagree with my past self. And so it's a little bit maddening to have to like read all that in the way that it is presented, but I am going to keep on reading and seeing how things go. So hopefully I'll have this book done before the month is over. But so far, 108 pages in, it's going, but it's frustrating in terms of the internal monologue. And sometimes it's quite overwhelming because it's a little bit of it. Don't know that much reading outside of these 30 pages is gonna get done today, but you never know. I may just surprise you. And myself. You never know. I come to you bearing terrible news. Maybe not the thing you guys want to hear, but today is our last day of the experiment. And alas, I am sad to report and announce that this was all I read. I did not read a single thing more of Dune, and instead I picked up Villains Are Destined to Die Volume 6. I was very much in the brain rot area, in the brain rot vibes, and so even though I am obviously going to keep reading Dune because I'm already in the midst of it, I just had to choose something that wasn't so dense and that kind of adhered a little bit more to where my brain was at, and so Villains Are Destined to Die ended up being that thing. I did read Villains Are Destined to Die Volume 6, and I gave it a whopping 4 stars. It wasn't as good as Volume 5 was, and I really do think it was because this was a winter heavy volume. It's not that I hate Winter. I think Winter's a great love interest. He's just not my favorite. And this was like plagued by Winter like a lot. And I really did appreciate seeing a lot of the world building for Winter and the magicians and how exactly the magic system works in this universe and exactly why is such a not frowned upon thing, but almost like a forbidden thing to be a sorcerer, to be a magician. You can't talk too much about it. And specifically for Winter, as one of the love interests who is not only a magician, but he also has royal standing, he can't really give himself away too much on that front because it does pose a certain danger. And so to see that world building and to kind of see a lot of the political tension inside this world and how that even connects to the whole magician business and how that influences how magicians are able to freely speak about themselves and their abilities, I think was really, really cool. The ending of Volume 6 was absolutely crazy. Okay, I'm not necessarily sad. I am sad that I don't have Volume 7. I don't regret reading this. I really love the experience of reading these volumes and I absolutely love the series. I just think it's a crime that this ends on such a huge cliffhanger and yet we don't even have an announcement date for Volume 7. So I shall be impatiently awaiting till that is announced to figure out when I'm gonna be able to keep on going with the story. And then I'm probably gonna read that when it comes out and I'm gonna have to wait the next few months in order for Volume 8 to come out. It's just like Spy Family. I don't know why I did this to myself because I was taking it like so slow and so well paced and now I have gone ahead and fucked it up. But I really enjoyed this. It was a 4-star. And with this, we end the video. So I think we can do a tally. Let's do a tally. I'm not saying we nailed it this week, but I'm kind of saying we nailed it. Like when I look at everything that I read, I think it was a fucking good time. I put myself down a little bit towards the end, especially because I wasn't able to read those 150 pages for 2 out of the 7 days. That I was like, oh my god, I feel like I didn't read anything. Ah! And then when I look at the array of things that we either made progress with or that we read and finished entirely, it's kind of crazy for a single week, at least for me with my reading pace. And so let us get through exactly what we read page count wise and let's add it up. So I read 108 pages of Dune, so that's 108 pages from there. I'm gonna have to go to Goodreads to look at the page count for volumes 5 and 6 of Villains Are Destined to Die. Volume 6 is 288 pages plus 273 pages. I could be wrong. I'll correct myself on the screen as I do the editing because I'm not quite sure right now as like I'm tallying up pages. So if there's any correction to be done, I'll do it here on the screen. And then we have got Wild Love by Miss Elsie silver, which was 447 pages. So in total this week, I read a whopping 1,388 pages, which let me tell you, is far more than I would typically read on a regular week. And that is it for today, friends. I hope you guys enjoyed me reading 150 pages a day and seeing exactly what that experiment would look like for me. I now am really curious to see if I were to try and read 200 pages a day, what would happen. I'm just putting it out there. Maybe something that can happen in the future. I feel like 200 pages is even more ambitious, obviously, than 150. 100 pages is like really easy in comparison, but maybe that's what we can challenge ourselves with next. 200 pages a day. Let a girl know in the comments if that's something that you'd like to see. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Comment down below if you've read any of the books that I read in this video, or if you're looking forward to them. What have you been up to reading wise? What have you finished recently? Would you even attempt to do something like this? Does your reading pace kind of match 150 pages a day? Or do you find that you kind of just read sporadically and then whatever that tallies up to, that's cool? I do know some people that have got like a minimum amount of pages that they want to read a day. So is that something that you do? Is that not something that you do? And if you reach the end of the video, let us leave like a wizard related emoji, whether it's like the magic ball or if it's the actual wizard or witch emojis. Let us leave all of those down in the comments if you reach the very end. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already for more content like this. And as always, if you'd like to support the channel further, I do have Patreon linked at the top of the description. That is massive helps towards keeping the channel running smoothly and to really keep things afloat, especially if you want more extra content, extra videos, bloopers, behind the scenes, sprints, many other live shows, 2 book clubs, a Discord server, and just a ton of other things that you're not going to see anywhere else, so you do get a bang for your buck. Patreon is always linked down below alongside the rest of my socials. Love you guys so much, and I shall see you in the next one.
Goodbye!